Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be reviewing Lords of Empyre Hulkling number 1. My name is Arden, and thanks for checking out our stream here on Comic Island. So, we just reviewed Empire number 2, and I do have a few tie-ins that came out this week as well. First one we're going to be reviewing is Emperor Hulkling, um, written by Chip Zdarsky and Anthony Oliveira, penciled by Manuel Garcia, inked by Cam Smith, and colored by Triana Farrell. Travis Lanham did the lettering, and Patrick Gleason and Marde Garcia did the cover, which is a pretty awesome cover. That's his face. Gleason's always pretty awesome, but so is Garcia and Smith, and Farrell, all of whom do this amazing job in what could really be a simple tie-in book. I kind of had pretty decent expectations of this because we just reviewed a Zdarsky book in the form of the finale for X-Men number 4 or whatever it's called. That was a lot of fun. Or sorry, X-Men Fantastic Four number 4, whatever. And he's been a really cool writer these days and did a really good job at basically this story is all about taking Hulkling from his status as a young adventurer and bridging the gap between him being that and becoming the emperor of the Kree Skull United Empire. And it starts from the very beginning of Hulkling's background as the bastard child of a Skrull princess and Captain Marvel, how he was ultimately shuttled to Earth while, and this image is up right here of Galactus ravaging the Skrull throne world in just like an awesome page where it's just a single shot of Galactus. But this is a cool book in terms of the artwork and the direction it goes, because we have this epic beginning that's almost like a Superman style origin story, and then it cuts to what you just saw on the screen there with Teddy Altman living out his life in New York, I assume? Wherever. It's got to be New York City. It's a Marvel comic. And just sort of texting with his fiance, Wiccan, who, I don't know how much you guys know about Young Avengers, but Teddy's a well-established character from this, and Zdarsky's clearly, appreciated those books because he really does a good job at bringing me right back to there, even though I'm probably behind on Young Avengers content at this point. Teddy goes to a bar with some friends, and he gets approached by Kree and Skrull representatives talking about how he's needed for the United Empire and how they don't explicitly say it, but the Qatari forces are closing in on Teddy, along with a bunch of Kree and Skrull factions that are against a potential alliance. Sure enough, a bunch of Skrull fanatics show up and attack, and Teddy, in what felt like a bit of an anticlimactic moment, just pulls out his royal sword out of nowhere. And the mere presence of it, this magical sword that the Skrulls just thought were of legend, that basically just establishes Teddy as the Emperor, immediately causes the Skrull fanatics to stand down. It's a pretty cool moment, but it's just weird that there's no, he just summons the sword on a single, panel out of nowhere kind of thing. But regardless, Teddy talks to Wiccan about the situation, and they go aboard the special throne ship of the United Kree Skrull factions. Teddy meets Tanalath, the Pursuer, the leader of the Kree accusers, so to speak, and major figure in the Last Empire book. She's got an interesting story in all of this and is kind of Teddy's main advisor. She also introduces him to Captain Glory, Super Skrull, who Teddy knows very well, and he flips out at him because Super Skrull killed basically the Skrull nanny that was sent with Teddy to Earth and raised him as her child. So in Teddy's eyes, this Skrull killed his mother, and he's like he is in the Empire books, very much owning his past mistakes, but promising to serve well. And it's not like Teddy exactly forgives it, but they sort of brush past that point, and Teddy ultimately gets attacked again by more fanatics because he refuses to kill key leaders of a rebellious group. And that only makes things worse with more deaths, and it kind of becomes clear Teddy's over his head. But I also appreciate him trying to be like this unified leader for this divided faction and trying to bring everyone together. Ultimately, they a bunch of stuff happens with Wiccan showing up again to help Teddy out against these rebels, but that actually upsets Teddy's like royal guard even more because they're like, you can't have a human consort for one thing, but also you sided with him over us, and like we can't follow you like this. And he publicly denounces them, although privately they're not really broken up, and it's still an interesting moment. I think there's now a divide there that isn't just reconciled. Officially, they're not even engaged anymore because of what Teddy has to declare basically on the throne. Then it's revealed that Tanalath set up the whole thing just in an effort to get Teddy to distance himself from his Earth ties so that he can be the proper leader he needs to be. She's not actually fully betraying him. She does want what's best for Teddy and to be a good ruler, and for this whole alliance thing to work, he needs to be committed. But it's definitely malevolent. She gets hundreds of people killed by doing this, including the terrorists she's working with. And in like one of the last pages of this book, she just blows up the rebels she was working with, just being like, "Well, you're just a loose end now." And she's badass in this story. It provides a lot of interesting perspective with the people around Hulkling, and I thought they were really going to set up Tanalath and Super Skrull as like the main villains of this story, who were manipulating Hulkling into waging war against humanity. Basically, we're getting a very different story and a different picture where they're actually working for what they feel is best for their people in a way that isn't malicious at all. Even Tanlath in this story, I get where she's coming from. She certainly had her way of going about it, but the whole Royal Guard, I kind of understand their perspective and why they want this to work. I mentioned in Empire number 2, they gave a good sense of how much of a struggle creating this alliance must have been. Hulkling number 1, or the special Hulkling tie-in, does an even better job at establishing that and explaining how this alliance came to be, why it was a bit of a debate, like, and ultimately how it became a thing, in spite of so much going against it. And that's why the Royal Guard is fighting so hard to preserve it. And Hulkling very much seems in their corner, even though he has this long experience as a young Avenger and seems different in Empire. You can kind of get a sense of why he's been given this tremendous responsibility. There's a sense of why, and it's just complicated. Like, he's not at all qualified to be this ruler. He has no experience like that and stuff, and it gets into the insanity of monarchy and all of that stuff. In many ways, Hulkling is like an okay character, but he's a pretty fun one overall. But I think there's something to this. Like, I don't love the whole monarchy succession thing, and the I certainly see the debate in it, but I don't know. It's an interesting enough story in and of itself, I guess, that it works on its own, and that's good enough for me. That I quite enjoyed it. And then Zardsky brings a lot of humanity along with Oliveira. I don't really know who did what in this book. That's not exactly clear. But on the whole, it's a pretty fun story and definitely worth your time. It was a $4.99 book, so it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a very complete sort of story. It doesn't like leave a lot of room beyond what it's trying to tell. The thing about it is, like in other tie-ins and stuff like that, and Forever Evil or any given major crossover like this, there's always tie-ins like this. usually stuff that are bridging in specific details about a character. That's the Marvel and DC mainstay for years now. So I've read a lot of books like this, even if I haven't read something I can specifically compare it to. But there's stuff that'll like establish Gamora's actions during Infinity Wars or whatever, and that sort of thing works pretty well in conveying the story, but it's kind of follows a certain pattern. It's almost like a prequel where it's got to reach a certain endpoint and you know where it's going, so there isn't really anything remarkable to it. This book feels different in that there is a bit of a mystery. They didn't really explain a lot of how Hulkling came to power other than just establishing his birthright. And this story kind of digs into that a little bit more without getting like into an overly dense Kree scrawled political novel or something like that. This felt like a relatively straightforward way of getting us a better glimpse into Hulkling's current character and stuff like that, and that was pretty fun. I quite liked it overall. So I would recommend it, and I do think it's pretty good, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, and so on, or whatever, and we'll be back with more reviews. I still got a bunch more from this week, and next up will be a pretty interesting one, given what happened in Empire #2. We're going to look at this X-Men crossover and see what's going on with those Kotati gates and how they relate to Krakoa. I'm curious how all that's going to work out. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.